So without further ado, getting into our first topic here, talking about the All-Star weekend in the NBA. So like I sort of alluded to, it was pretty disappointing, I think, from my perspective, and I think that a lot of people share that point of view as well. But at this point, it's just sort of a tough situation because I don't think that there's really a ton to do it. As far as we'll start with the game itself, where the East dominated the West. They scored over 200 points, and it was maybe a little bit of a surprise just based off of you look at that Western Conference All-Star team, and there is a legitimate chance that every single one of those players could end up being a Hall of Famer. But they end up getting destroyed because realistically the amount of effort that was put into this game was very low, and that's why a lot of people sort of had concerns and complaints about this game. The TNT alternate cast with Draymond Green and Charles Barkley, and sort of the energy, and I wouldn't even call it drama, just like the banter back and forth between them was honestly the most entertaining part of the game. There was a stretch early in the game where Tyrese Halliburton, the hometown star in Indiana, he hit 5 straight three-pointers, and it was a good start there, but then really after that the game was borderline unwatchable, and overall it wasn't entertaining. Lillard did end up taking home the MVP. He had a big weekend personally, winning the MVP, winning the three-point contest as well, but it again just was not a very compelling game, and it has a lot of people asking about whether or not there is any way to fix this. How do we fix this? And I'll start off by saying Anthony Edwards, who was an All-Star this year, gave a quote afterwards, and I think that it's pretty much calling it like it is, and not in a positive way for any fans who are hoping that this thing can get turned around. He said that this is their All-Star break, and he said, this is a quote from him, "I don't think nobody wants to come here and compete." And it's, again, that level of competition and competitiveness that we're just lacking. And I'm not sure that there's really a way to get it back. Brian Windhorst was on ESPN earlier today talking about one of Commissioner Adam Silver's main priorities this season was to sort of bring some juice back to All-Star Weekend, and that did not happen. And so while he wants this to happen, and a lot of fans are really hoping that we can sort of turn this around, I just don't think it's a real reality because, he's not wrong. This is an All-Star break. You play 82 games throughout the course of the season, lots of back-to-backs, all that. And I know there are already going to be people saying, well, they get paid, tens of and hundreds of millions of dollars to play this sport, suck it up. And that's fair, but at the same time I can understand why these stars don't want to overextend themselves during this break, because God forbid there were to be some sort of an injury, because you think about it, you want them to compete. And supposedly Doc Rivers was trying to actually coach up the team a little bit leading up to the game, but I don't think that, it just requires a certain level of preparation and practice to really be into it, because you don't want to get yourself hurt. If you get hurt during the All-Star game, that is likely in the long term going to affect your future money. And it's just, I really don't think that it's worth it for them to put in the effort. So as much as I would prefer to be watching a better product, I really can understand the players' perspective of why they don't want to really exert themselves in these cases. And, people make the argument of, well, you are paid all this money as it is, and you're being awarded an All-Star title. So for the sake of that, you should feel obligated, is maybe a little bit of a stretch. But, there are people saying that you should feel like you need to put on a show. And the reality is they really don't owe us anything as fans. And It's just one of those things where I know I sound sort of pessimistic about the idea of this ever coming back, and I feel like I'm, defending the players a lot. But the reality is, they have bigger things to worry about. This is that they are in the job of entertaining and playing sports, but it's still a job that requires a ton of effort and, physically expending yourself. And, this is the time where they usually get to, after, over 50% of the season, get a week or so to themselves and just sort of kick back more and hang out with one another, build relationships. And I think that more so the issue is the fact that the NBA tries to push it on us so much as it's this, big thing. And you have the other announcing crew that did it instead of the alternate cast, like Reggie Miller, Candace Parker. It's bad when anytime there is a hint of defense, they're pointing it out. And, I just think that it's one of those things. We're sort of past return here. Now, there are some ideas to potentially bring a little bit more juice back to the game. There's always a potential of trying to get, financial incentives here to pay the winning team more. Now, you're talking about all-stars here who, not that they're going to turn down free money or the chance at winning money, but they're already on, the most expensive contracts in the league. So I think that it's got to be interesting to see. Like, $1 million is $1 million for anybody, but I think that that's also such a small percentage of what their contracts are. How much are you really going to push them by throwing $1 million on the table there? I think that the most interesting concept to me would be doing a Team USA versus Team World. I think that, we've had a little bit of debates over the past year or so of, the NBA Finals being the World Championship, but it's only teams in America other than Toronto, and people were a little bit split on it. I feel like, there's so much talent internationally now that they maybe even have, probably the top players in the world as far as Giannis and Jokic and Luka, they're all international. I feel like if you put in a little bit of a nationality pride thing into it, players might be a little bit more compelled to compete. The other idea that's been thrown out there, Hassan Whiteside did an interview with Sideline Sources, and he talked about the idea of having it sort of baseball style or former baseball style of the team that wins gets home court advantage in the finals. Gotta say, I'm not really a fan of that idea. I think that it's a little bit unfair. Like, you work so hard during the 82 games that, for example, right? And this is something that was in the comments of that post that I saw. Someone pointed out the idea of, well, what if the Kings were to make the finals this year? And I know that the Western Conference lost, so this doesn't really mean anything anyways, but they are sort of in the realm of contenders. I don't have them in my personal list, but they are a very good team. Let's say they make the finals this year. They didn't even have an all-star in the game. So would they really deserve to get home court advantage because of what the other teams in the Western Conference did? I don't know. It's just an idea that was thrown out there. I'm not the biggest fan of it personally, but maybe it would get guys to compete more, because whether you think it's fair or unfair, it does have, real applications. And sure, you have players on the All-Star court that probably aren't really too concerned with who would have home court advantage in the finals. If you're on maybe a little bit of a middling team, like a Scotty Barnes on the Raptors right now, or a Trae Young on the Hawks. But it's an idea. I think that, all ideas should sort of be explored, at least based off of just the result of what we've been getting for this weekend that has just really lost its shine. And I think that, honestly, more so than the game itself, like, I don't really care about the game. I can understand why people might want to, but I kind of do side with the players a little bit more that, you know what, they're just going out, they're having fun. That's what it's about. It's about celebrating them. They sort of get to do so however they want. It's just the NBA stopped pushing it on us as this big thing when we know that it's not in reality. But my bigger complaint is with the dunk contest, because that has lost all of the excitement behind it. And there's, I think, a handful of different reasons for it. The first has to be sort of star participation within it. And you have Jaylen Brown come out this year, all NBA player last season. He decides to do it. And did he put out a great performance? No. But he gave a quote afterwards, said some people are afraid to get turned into a meme or whatever. I wanted to come out and have fun within it, and that's what I did. And he did again, maybe a little bit of an underwhelming dunk with Tatum going over YouTuber streamer Kai Cenat, and he wore a Terrence Clarke jersey, which, for those of you who don't know, Terrence Clarke was a top basketball prospect some years ago, but he unfortunately passed away at a very young age. And from Massachusetts, or I think he's from New England, and Jaylen Brown paid tribute to him wearing his jersey. I thought that was a cool thing. And you know what? He had fun with it. Was he great? No. But that's the thing, is he said he just wanted to have fun, and that's what he did. Where are all the other stars that, it is such a travesty, I feel like, that LeBron James has never been in a dunk contest. And, again, people can sort of give Jaylen Brown some, if you feel like it, give him negativity. I think it's a weird move, because we shouldn't be tearing down these star players that actually do participate in for once. But, he sort of was they had 2 G League players doing it. And Mac McClung, I don't want to speak down on him, because he's been terrific the past 2 years. He's just about the only one who actually does really show up to this thing. And it's unfortunate that we are so reliant on G League players to, sort of do this thing. The fact that we had 2 this year with him and Jacob Toppin was good too. But there's nobody else interested in doing it, that we are having to rely on these G League players so much. I mean, it's a little bit unfortunate that this is the situation. And I don't know if it's a stigma or what. I don't think there's a real injury concern. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never heard of a player getting hurt in a dunk contest. I think that Jaylen Brown was onto it. I think that, guys are just so worried about being embarrassed. And that's just, I don't know, that's sort of a lame way to look at it, because you look at what the highlight of the weekend was, and it was Steph Curry versus Sabrina Ionescu, however you pronounce it. I think it's Ionescu. But that was an incredibly entertaining product to see. And when you look at it sort of big picture here, Steph Curry had almost very little to gain from this competition that they did. Greatest shooter ever in NBA history, going up against a woman from the WNBA. This has never been done before. There was a little bit of pride on the line there, and he was willing to do it because he knew it was a great product for, the NBA, the WNBA as well. And it ended up being a great performance from both ends. Sabrina and Steph both showed out. Steph comes away with the title there, but Sabrina was neck and neck with him, held her own, I should say. And I thought it was a really cool moment in basketball history. And, I think that it's something they should look to continue going forward with, because I talked about Caitlin Clark on the show on Friday. I think that, we can build up this WNBA product more. It's just about marketing it well enough and having stars like Sabrina, like Caitlin Clark, if she decides to come to the WNBA next year, I mean, she could get involved as well, and they could do some sort of other iteration of it. That would be really cool to see for me. Last thoughts here. I thought the Rising Stars tournament, again, also not very competitive, but I thought it was sort of cool. I liked the addition of the G League team. I was confused how it worked at first because I watched when they drafted the players and there were only 3 teams drafting. But I'm like, they're doing a tournament here? How does this work? And it's because Detlef Schrempf, he has a team full of G League players, including some G League Ignite guys that are potential NBA prospects, first round picks in this upcoming draft. So I thought that, again, not that it was really, you can't take a ton away from it, but it was an introduction for guys like Matas Buzelis, who hits a game winner for the G League team, actually winning their first game, upsetting Wemby and Team Pau. And also, if you are somebody that's making fun of the G League, like I saw comments on this, like legit, if you're making fun of the G League players for actually putting in some effort in this game, then you are exactly what's wrong with why we're not having more people trying. Because it's like you get made fun of for participating and for trying. That's what Jaylen Brown's experiencing currently. It's like we are trying to fix this and have things be more competitive, more entertaining, and you're just, I don't know, you're tearing it down for what? It makes no sense to me, but I thought it was a cool idea bringing in the G League team, and they ended up winning a game, so it was a cool thing. Benedict Mathurin was also very entertaining, another homegrown guy there in Indiana from the Pacers, and he was all over the place during this tournament. He was chirping at Jaden Ivey, saying that he couldn't guard him. He bet $25K on some free throws at the end of the game. He went to the free throw line. The target score was 40. They were at 38 points. Bet Paolo Banchero $25,000 that he would end the game on this pair of free throws, and he went 0 for 2. So a pretty funny moment there. But he scored 18 of the team's 40 points, including the game winner then, and he ends up winning MVP of the tournament. So, I feel like all in all, pretty forgettable weekend. You had some individual moments that stood out, and as a basketball fan, you sort of look for things like that, like some of the young bucks getting into it, trying to get the competitive juices flowing a little bit. But I don't really have any answers for the All-Star game itself, and it's interesting because Adam Silver, they are going through contract negotiations for the media. They want to sell themselves as a product. That's why they came up with the All-NBA rule to have that minimum number of games to be eligible for All-NBA awards and such. It's because they need other media companies to be willing to invest in their product. And with the amount of load management we've seen for years, they wanted to give these companies and these platforms a reason to want to invest into their product. And this was sort of the one checklist item, the way that Windhorse put it on ESPN earlier today, that Adam Silver didn't really get to cross off. He limited the amount of load management that was going on in the league. He put on a pretty good product for the in-season tournament. This one still has a little bit of ways to go, so we'll see if they make any sort of adjustments for next year, or if we can ever really get this thing truly going. But I have my doubts, and I don't think that it is really all that big of a deal at the end of the day. I'm more worried about the actual games itself. You can complain about it, you can say it's bad, I'll agree with you, but I just don't know if there's really a feasible solution to all this. So, let me know what you guys think in terms of if there is any way to sort of get this thing going in a more competitive way. But I definitely have my doubts. But on that note, we are going to be taking our first break. When we come back on the other side, we are going to be taking a look at some of the contenders for the finals in the NBA this year, and I will be giving my reasons why they will or will not win it this year. So stick with us. We will be right back.